So my name's Nathan Bender. I'm from Portland, Oregon. And then I applied to Princeton as an economics major. In high school, I did a lot of political stuff, worked in the state house, worked for city councilors, did some partisan work as well. So that was
Okay.
kind of my edge coming in.
Perfect. And did you apply early to Princeton?
Yes, I applied early to Princeton.
Okay.
So I
And
found out in December, which is nice.
that's the best thing. I applied early to NYU as well, and
Just being done.
it's like such a good feeling because then you don't have to suffer through the RD and write like
For the next
40
4
different
months.
essays. Perfect, man. Congrats, first of all. It's
Thank you.
amazing. All right, like when did you first consider Princeton as a possibility? Was it always a dream school for you?
It was always kind of a dream school. I mean, I don't think you really start considering college at all until like at least late middle school. But kind of like coming into high school, it was a dream school and it started to become more real. I realized it was kind of a dream school for like silly reasons when I was a little bit younger. But then as I actually researched the school, it happened to align very well with what I was hoping for and my college experience. Good location, good size. I had the programs I wanted, which, it's Princeton, so not shocking. But
Yep.
I think for me, really around like sophomore year, I started to really think about my college application.
Okay. And like, I guess like what specifically do you do Princeton over other elite schools?
I think one of the biggest things was location, the huge emphasis on undergraduate teaching. But like you think about like Harvard, Yale, Stanford, particularly like Harvard, Yale, they're excellent schools, but they have many more grad students than they do undergrads. And so there's a lot more kind of focus on those grad programs, on law schools, on MBA programs. Whereas at Princeton, our ratio is like 3/4 undergrads, 1/4 grad students.
Okay,
So you
yeah.
get a lot more time interacting with professors directly rather than having all of your lectures mostly be focused by TAs as the professors focus on grad students. So that was the biggest thing.
Makes sense. All right. So I guess like everyone would be really curious about your stats that got you into Princeton. So I guess let's talk about that. So like what was the GPA and did you give any tests? And if so, like what were your test scores?
Yeah, so I had a 4.0 unweighted. My school didn't weight GPAs.
Okay.
So that was on the GPA side. And we didn't have too many APs. But AP-wise, I took Calc BC and Spanish, got 5s on those, and then got self-studied for stats and for U.S. history and got 4s on those. And then for my SAT, I had a 790 verbal and then a 760 math.
Okay. That's amazing. Like I guess like what was the typical range for your school in terms of these?
I was probably on the higher end. I don't think I definitely didn't have the highest score. I was probably one of only a couple kids with a 4.0 at the time of application. So definitely on the higher end for GPA.
Okay.
SAT score, probably like upper quintile, but not like tippity top.
Okay. And like does your school rank?
No, we do not do school rankings. So no valedictorian, no school rankings. So like a lot of this is kind of based on a little bit of estimation rather than very clear data.
And I guess like how did you feel about your academic profile? Because I know like Princeton, like all of the best schools get like thousands of applicants with perfect stats, so many that they can like even enroll all of them. So like how do you feel about that? All right, really quickly, if you found value in this podcast so far, I've been exactly where you are. I'm sharing the exact case studies, doing live Q&As and free one-on-one calls because I wish someone had done this for me. So it's free, but we're going to be closing soon. So join with the first link in the description and let's get back to the interview.
I think academically, I felt pretty strong. I think the biggest thing that felt like a weak point was my lack of AP scores just because my school didn't offer very many. I think on the SAT, my kind of perspective was anything over like a 1500 is really just kind of a benchmark. It doesn't really matter that much. So I felt good academically. It was more about like thinking about my ECs where I was like, okay, there's so many kids who do so many different things. Are they going to like what I have to offer?
Makes sense. And you had like a very good SAT score, 1550. So I guess like my question to you what was your starting score? And
So I took the test twice. I got a 1530 the first time.
Okay.
And then, funnily enough, I actually got a 1520 the second time, but I super scored to a 1550.
Well, once you get to the 1520, 1530 mark, it's very hard to like drop down. I had the same situation.
I was not focused on like getting a 1600. I never had that as like a goal of mine. I was just like, okay, if I can clear this benchmark, that's good.
And like, how long before your application deadline did you get your final SAT score?
I got my final SAT score in June before my senior year.
Okay.
So I guess like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, I guess like that's a very good time because like a lot of students are just now giving their SATs.
I know, trying to do it in the fall would have been
Yeah.
too much. I could have done that.
Like I guess like I have so many students in my DMs. I don't know. You probably didn't face this, but like if you had to juggle essays and SAT prep, like how would you manage both?
Say that one more time. At SAT prep and
Essays, ECs, and everything. Like
oh,
how
just
would you
like
manage both? How would you
I
manage
think the
like
biggest
everything?
thing is like planning ahead. I mean, like the nice thing with like SATs, that's something you can get done early. If you
Mm-hmm.
can get that done as early as possible and then basically just spend all of your summer focused on, I think ECs, summer before senior year, are really underrated. Like a lot of the ECs I had in my app came actually from that summer.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a big thing. And then just working on your essays as much as you can as early as possible is really useful.
Makes sense. And you had like an amazing first score as well, like 1530 is a benchmark. So I guess like can you walk us through your testing journey? Like was it a struggle or like did it come naturally for you?
I think for me, testing it was really just about like making sure I knew the material, make sure I knew how to use the tools.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had a huge struggle with testing, but I also think I did a decent job with like my testing prep. And I think the biggest thing was just like making sure, this is going to sound so silly, but just making sure you know how to use Desmos really effectively is super useful for the math section. And then like just like simple stuff like reviewing grammar rules for like the verbal section is really useful. I think a lot of it is difficult, but it's material that you kind of know. So it's just kind of reviewing that.
Yeah, makes sense. And like I've been telling this to a lot of people. I don't think there's like anything as like cracking the SAT or cracking any test. It's just that you have to master the fundamentals and then it's like you just get it.
You have to master the fundamentals. You have to figure out how to like look
Yeah.
through questions efficiently, and like process of elimination is super helpful.
Yeah. Like I guess like how did you prep for it? Like did you take a lot of tests? Like what were your main
I took
resources?
a lot of practice tests. Like Khan Academy had some good practice as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I used one of the big SAT test prep books. I would just work through that entire book.
Mm-hmm.
And
What
that
book was
proved
that?
super helpful. Was it Barron's? It might have been Barron's.
Okay. All right. Like moving on. Let's talk about your ECs. I guess I
Yeah.
think everyone would be really interested in that. So I guess like when is the earliest you started thinking about your extracurriculars that we were gonna put in your application?
I think at some level, I thought about my ECs. Like at the start of my high school journey, I was very committed to fencing.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a while, and I did love fencing. And at some point, I think there was also this kind of realization of like, I really want to be more involved politically. So like I did like policy debate for a year. I was on student government. But I think really like starting in my junior year when I started volunteering for my local county party was really kind of when I started thinking about, okay, I can start telling a story about my political involvement, political journey in my college app. And that led to a whole bunch of different internships and summer programs, which was super helpful.
Makes sense. Okay. And like, do you plan your ECs strategically, or did you just go with the flow and then you found out what you're passionate about?
I really recommend just kind of going with the flow a little
Okay.
bit. I think there are a lot of people like trying to game the system. I'm obviously not a college apps expert, but I think trying to game the system doesn't
Yeah.
really work very well because everyone's kind of trying to do the same thing. I was like, okay, I love politics. I just want to be as involved as much as I can politically. And that ended up working out really well for me. Obviously, different people have different outcomes, different stories. But I think like I saw a lot of people who would try and like make sure they had one musical instrument and one sport and were in at least 3 clubs. It's just like, don't do that. Do what you want to do.
Yeah, totally
figure out a story to
understandable.
tell.
Yeah, like I don't think there's such thing as gaming the system because like if everyone's doing it, they're gonna see through it so quickly
I know.
because they get like
It's
millions. Of
so
publishers.
transparent.
Yeah, and you just can't be like authentic in that as well. You know.
It's really difficult to write like a compelling essay about gaming the system.
I think the closest thing to gaming the system is just to craft your narrative around what you actually did properly.
Yeah, no, I
It's
think
just-
that is true.
Yeah.
It's figure out how to tell that story.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Can you walk us through like a couple of your extracurriculars that you think were the most impressive to the ALs?
I think the most impressive to the AOs was probably, have you heard of a boys' state?
No, please tell us.
It's a summer program. There's a boys' state and a girls' state put on by the American Legion. Essentially, they run a mock government, state government for rising high school seniors.
Okay.
It's like a 1-week program. Happens in every state. So I did that, and I won governor in Oregon, which is like because it's a mock state government is the highest position you can get. And then from there, I went to Boys Nation, where they take the top 2 kids from each state and send them to DC to do a mock Senate. And that was a really cool experience. I mean,
That
like
sounds so fun as well.
I got to see Kamala Harris speak on the South Lawn of the White House. Like, it was really fun, but it was also just like definitely my most impressive EC because it's a pretty selective program.
Okay. And like, what other ECs do you think differentiated your application?
I think it was not so much individual ECs as it was the narrative I was able to craft around a bunch of these different political ECs and how they all wove together and represent different aspects of this one story. So like I interned for the Senate Democratic Leadership Fund in my state. I volunteered for the county party. I was on my city's transportation board. I interned for a city councilor. I did a legislative fellowship with the House Majority Leader. I later ended up interning for him, but that was after app season. So I think it's because each of these like individual political activities wove together to tell a really nice narrative.
Yep, makes sense. But like, I guess a lot of students, like I had that problem as well. So maybe you could add into that. A lot of students don't have that, you know, like that narrow kind of interest. They have like very scattered interests. So like, I guess, how would you go around crafting a solid narrative when you're doing a bunch of stuff?
I think you start focusing on connections. Like, I mean, I think you could have varied interests, but often there's like something in each of them that kind of ties them together, whether it's like a love for like managing systems or thinking about kind of, I don't know, like you see like the stereotypical essay is like the harmony in math and music and all that. But like the idea is you could definitely make a story that connects how these different interests each represent kind of the same core aspect of yourself. So I think there's ways to kind of tie a narrative around each of them. You just have to be a little creative.
Makes sense. And like another thing that's going around is that you have to show impact on your application.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I wouldn't get like too sucked into this idea of like passion projects or impact. I think impact is nice because you want to show that you have some, you know, like some, I don't know, positive impact on your community is always a good thing. But I think the biggest thing is you're trying to like demonstrate a true passion for something. It doesn't have to be for one individual thing. It doesn't have to be as narrowly focused as just like politics, but you got to show that you have like an actual interest in the issue, that it goes beyond trying to check off a box or add to your college app.
Makes sense. And like for community service, like a lot of people want to do that because that's like another box they have to tick, you know? So I guess like how do you be authentic? How do you make it like authentic rather than just like you checking a box?
I think you have to think about what issue you actually care about. Like if you care a lot about, I don't know, access to affordable food, there's like a bunch of different programs you can focus on there, and you could just really dive deep with community service. I think it's more important to do something that you're interested in, even if it's like fewer hours, than to just have a ton of hours marked for one activity that's clearly just meant as a checkbox. I think you just have to be really committed to the service that you're doing. And I think you can only do that if you are genuinely interested in that. So start with what you're interested in rather than looking for service opportunities.
Makes sense. I think, I think that's the only advice that works, to be very honest.
You just got to follow something that you actually want to do. Otherwise, you're not going to do it.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about your awards and honors section. So what did you put in that? Did you feel competitive in that area?
That was probably my weakest section, to be honest. I guess I had Secretary of the Treasury for Boys Nation, which was something. And then I had a sustainability award for a science project I did in my like sophomore year, focused on fire retardant and its impact on invasive species and their growth and all that. So I had those two, and then I just had like AP Scholar. But my award section was probably the weakest part of my application, just because I didn't do many like Olympiads or like I only stuck in policy debate for a year. So a lot of my stuff didn't really provide many opportunities to provide awards.
Yeah. And I guess like you feel kind of an imposter when applying to schools like Princeton, or I know I did, because like everyone is cracked with like 5 Olympiad awards and stuff, you know?
It's just like, I think, again though, I think like you don't have to, like checking off those boxes, unless you're truly like just the GOAT for one of these Olympiads. I don't think you have to focus on checking off these boxes. If you want to do an Olympiad, do an Olympiad. But like, I think you can get past without that. It's just a nice indicator that you're interested in the subject and you know something about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of students who are listening to this right now would be, I guess, very happy, because like everyone's probably thinking at this point, oh my God, I don't have any Olympiads on my bars and honors, you know? All right, moving on. Let's talk about your essays. I guess, what did you write your Common App essay about, and how did you turn your journey into like a compelling essay for
I actually wrote my main Common App essay about losing my election for student body president.
Okay.
I had kind of thought I was a bit of a shoo-in at the time because I was chair of my school's policy board, which is one of our branches of the student government. And I had a very clear path. And then in my junior year, a guy joined who's now a very dear friend, ended up becoming our student body president. And he was a fantastic student body president. I think for me, it was still just kind of jarring at the moment. So I talked about how that losing that race actually caused me to rethink kind of how I planned out my life so carefully and like with so much like fear around it and like focusing on only getting this one narrow path. And I talked about how that loss actually encouraged me to do kind of things that I would be uncomfortable doing otherwise and beforehand. I tied it in with like a metaphor about buying a new pair of jeans that was hard to describe without reading the actual essay, but it worked quite well.
Okay, makes sense. And I guess like we're like less than 2 months away from ED. I think it's November 1st. And my DMs are like full of students who are just waking up to reality about essays, you know. So I guess like how do you suggest they approach the essay writing process at this moment?
The biggest thing is you just need time. I mean, I hate to say it, but like the best way to write these essays is you really have to hammer them out and then get people to look at them. You get eyes on your essays, you get feedback, you hear what doesn't work. You're not asking for other people to write your essays. I want to be very clear about that. You don't want people to just like, you don't want to take other people's words, and they will also make your essays worse if you do so. But what you can do is you can kind of get a sense for like where something isn't quite clicking. And the more feedback I think you can get on the essays, kind of the better. You don't take all of it, but you pick and choose from the feedback you get on what you like, and you
Makes
just
sense.
keep rewriting.
Another question is like, do you think if you get like a lot of opinions, or true voice gets filtered out? And like, how do you
I think
safeguard
this is
from
where you
that?
have to be. I think this is where you have to be cautious. I think you choose a few people, like a few key people who you really trust. So for me, that was really my boss. Was actually the city councilor was a key one of those. And then like I think like some help from like a couple like core friends who you really trust. And again, you don't even have to take all of their advice. In fact, I'd suggest that you don't. If you do, you will kind of lose your true voice. But you can hear again what's working and what's not working. And you just kind of limit it to a narrow audience that you trust.
Okay.
But you have them look at it over and over and over.
And like walk us through your essay writing journey. Like when did you start? How many drafts did you have to discard? Everything.
Well, so my first Common App draft I wrote in probably August, and I didn't end up using any of it.
Okay.
I completely scrapped that essay. So I was probably working on my Common App through like early October, which was late. I definitely procrastinated. I'd recommend you get it done earlier. And then my supplementals, I was basically all of October, I was just in a crunch, which again, I recommend you get started on that now if you haven't already, just because you can do what I did and it worked out for me. But at the same time, I also was only applying, because I was applying EA to Princeton, I didn't have too many schools in my EA round because they do restricted early action. So I had fewer essays to write, and even then, it still felt like a time crunch. So
Okay. And like a lot of students have this this thought as well, where they think about just the perfect story in their head before they start writing. Or like, what do you suggest in that? Should they just start cranking out drafts, or should they first think about everything before start writing?
I think you have to, this is a process I went through a good bit. I think a lot of my like early drafts, I thought about what story I was going to tell. And then I like tried to frame like my message around that story. That's a bad way to do that. I think you have to focus first on trying to think about what you're trying to convey to the admissions officer about yourself. Like, what are you trying to get across? My mentor and boss had this good thing on like, the AOs are going to be pitching you to the committee. And if you want them to like think about 3 words they can pitch you with, what are those 3 words going to be? It's like this idea of thinking about what do you want to get across? And then once you know what you want to get across very clearly, you can think about what story you'll use from your life to frame that.
Okay.
So I think that's the right order.
Makes sense. I was going to ask about your college selection strategy, but you were one of the lucky ones who got into got in early. So like that's amazing. So I guess let's move on to your recommendation letter strategy. I guess the first question would be like, did you ever guide or prepare your recommenders by sharing a brag sheet or?
Yeah. So I think for my teacher recommendations, I definitely had a brag sheet for both of those. I got a recommendation from a really good history and economics teacher I'd had, and then from my calc teacher. I think having one STEM and one humanities is usually a useful balance, unless you're like hyper focused on one thing. But still, it's nice to show some diversity and interest and ability. And then I think I got an outside recommendation from my mentor. And again, he knew a lot about me, so I didn't have to create a rag sheet for that. But just like you have to develop those relationships, I think, especially with teachers, as early as you can. And well, you don't want to like show up to someone's class and ask for a letter of rec from a teacher who's like barely talking to you.
No, for sure. Like, I think these are, apart from your main application, I think your counselor rec is the most important, and then the teacher recs for sure. And I guess, like, how did you choose which teachers to ask for recommendations? And how long did it take for you to build that relationship?
So I think for me, one of the teachers I'd had for a bunch of classes, he was a really huge influence on my kind of high school career.
Okay.
And he made sense, but I chose him partially because I had a great relationship with him, but also partially because he was my economics teacher, and I was an economics major applicant. So I think that was kind of the big thing, was thinking about which subjects would be applicable to the degree I was applying for, and then getting the teachers from those subjects. So that's why I also did my calc teacher. So I was like, if I'm going to major in econ, getting a calc teacher is probably a good idea.
Makes sense. Okay.
I could have also done stats, but one or the other.
You applied early this year, right? Did you get like an interview, or did you get straight in?
I had an interview, yeah.
Okay.
So I had an interview with a professor at Reed College, which is a college in Portland.
Okay. And like, walk us through your interview experience. What was the most unexpected question they asked you? What did they ask you in general?
I think the one that really threw me off guard was he asked about why I was interested in Princeton. And that wasn't what threw me off guard. What threw me off guard was after my answer, he immediately kind of switched up and talked about how he thinks it's a stupid question that they have to ask that because, like, we're all high schoolers. We haven't actually been on campus, so what do we know? Trying to figure out how to respond to that after I just given my whole spiel on why I wanted to go to school was a little tricky.
Yeah.
But I think it was a nice conversation. There's a lot of reflection.
Okay. And did you prepare for the interview?
I did. I thought about particularly like my answer for why are you interested in Princeton and tell me a bit about yourself were kind of the two questions I think you should always have, not for Princeton specifically, but you should always have for a college interview kind of answers to. Tell me about yourself, think about what you're going to say. Again, you're kind of pitching yourself in some way there. And then again, like, why are you interested in that college? Because it's so easy with Common App to just throw as many schools as you want onto your application. So they're looking for people who actually have a commitment to their school.
Makes sense. And I really want to ask this question as well. And this is for like students who feel behind right now. So I guess, like, what would you tell a junior who feels like they wasted their first couple of years of high school?
I would say to that junior, you are underestimating how much time you have between now and application season. A lot of my, I think, kind of best extracurriculars really came in my junior year, and like late junior year, or summer, early senior year was when I think my app really kind of came together. Before that, I largely just had fencing, where I fenced well, but I wasn't getting recruited. And I had student government. And those were kind of it for like my freshman and sophomore years. So I'd say is if you feel behind in your junior year, you still have a lot of time to kind of build your extracurricular list.
Yeah, you just got to lock in at this point.
You just got to, no, seriously, you just have to lock in.
All right. And this is another common question a lot of students have. Like how do you balance being genuinely passionate about something while also being strategic about college admissions and impressing some of the best AOs?
I think you think about kind of what this thing you're interested in, you love is, and then you think about, oh, if I kind of want to apply using this as my angle, then I think you can start being a little strategic once you have that passion on what am I going to do within this field to kind of demonstrate my interest and diversity of ability. It's like a lot of like, I thought, okay, if I have a fellowship and then I do this something with the city that's on a transportation board that's an appointment, and then something that's elected through student government or Boys State. And then you can kind of think about all these different paths through which you can demonstrate your interest and ability in that field. So I think you start with the passion, and then from there you can afford to be strategic.
Okay, makes sense. I think this will be really, really helpful as well. And another common thing students face is, I felt the same as well, is the comparison trap. You know, like some of the schools, some of the students don't have enough resources, but when they look at, you know, when they look online with stats of people who got admitted to these crazy schools, they're so cracked. So I guess, like, how do you stop comparing yourself to students with like better backgrounds?
I think you got to remember, and this can be like a little tricky, but you got to remember that you're really not competing with those kids. Like a kid at Phillips Exeter is not being compared to a kid at a rural public school, which is a good thing because there's just huge differences in access to opportunity there. But it also means that like the kid who seems super cracked at Phillips Exeter does not really have that much better of a shot than someone who's really taken advantage of all the resources and opportunities they have, even if those resources and opportunities are more limited.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's what I keep telling everyone. It's just the college admissions, they're very contextual. And so
they're thinking about you versus the people in your context.
Yeah, for sure. Like, cause I have like interviewed some people who got like 1400 or even like 1280 got into Harvard.
Yeah.
Which is like unheard of when you look online because everyone has like 1600 and everything, you know.
But they're like, they have plenty of kids with 1600s. They're not looking. Yeah. Having a 1600 does not make you an interesting applicant.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing.
All right. So like now that you're on the other side, do you think the college admissions process is fair?
No, I think there are ways you can make it better for yourself 100%, but it definitely still has huge gaps and advantages. I mean, you think about like SAT scores, and this is not to say that you cannot achieve extremely high scores on the SAT coming from a background with fewer resources. But at the same time, like the correlation between SAT scores and income, it just kind of makes you think that at some level, it's not so much about meritocracy as it is about access to these resources and opportunities and tutoring and better school counselors, private school education. I mean, I think, and then you have, of course, like legacy as well.
Yeah.
Which is probably unfair. So like, I don't know. I think it's fairer than people make it out to be, but I don't think it's a fair process.
Okay. And like, what would you change about how students approach college applications?
I wish, this is very much kind of a dreamy wish rather than a reality. But I wish American students didn't place so much actual value on, I wish there wasn't this kind of conflation of college with your intelligence or your worth or anything. Because I feel like, especially in some environments, I know for my school, at least, is a pretty competitive school. And so there's so much like toxicity and also just this kind of sense of despair when someone didn't get into their dream college.
Yeah.
I wish like it doesn't matter that much. I figure your college, the name of your college, realistically, will probably matter for your first job and not that much afterward. So I don't know.
But don't you think like getting into a good college, even if it doesn't have extraneous benefits, you get to develop yourself so much?
Yes, I think there are definitely huge advantages. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you're exposed to
some of the best
different people who are competitive. You have great professors. I think really the exposure to your peers is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of alumni network that you get out of it. So there's definitely huge advantages. I just wish that there was like less of a conflation of going to Harvard somehow makes you a better person. I think that's what I wish there's less of.
Okay, makes sense. All right. I guess I have like one last question for you. Like if you could go back and give your freshman yourself one piece of advice,
I wish I'd been more willing to take risks earlier on. I think the biggest thing for me, especially like my freshman, sophomore year, I think part of the reason I didn't have as many extracurriculars and didn't feel like I could tell a compelling story was actually this idea that I've got to do fencing and then I've got to do student government and then I got to do X, Y, and Z. I was very focused on being strategic and I think those first 2 years, and I think it actually kind of hurt me. I wish I just started by doing what I found interesting rather than kind of waiting for my junior year to start taking those risks.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I think it will be immensely helpful for people who are looking to apply.
Thank you.
And yeah, let's stay connected.
Yeah.